Hello, hello, hello everyone, and welcome back to Fallout 76 for our weekly trip to the Purveyor, where we're going to spend 1,000 scrip on legendary weapons, talk about what makes them good, talk about what makes them bad, and most importantly today, talk about some of these new and changed effects. In addition to that, when we're done with our run at the Purveyor, we're going to head back to camp on another character and craft 5 legendary weapons just to see how that system works. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to balance out legendary crafting versus the Purveyor. I'll figure that out as time goes on, but for now we'll just play it by ear. Remember, as always, if you like videos like this and you want to see more, do go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment. There's always a lot more to come on the channel, and without further ado, let's go see what Mama Mumbles has for us today. And our first roll of the day is a Suppressor's Combat Shotgun with the last round in the magazine. That is a long description. Holy hell. Okay, so Suppressor's Combat Shotgun with the last shot effect, 25% less VATS AP cost. So let's talk about this one. They've changed the Suppressor's effect. It now does, it now reduces your target's damage output by 25% instead of 20%, and it's for 5 seconds instead of 3. So it's a good bit more effective than it was before. I still question whether there's really much of a need for it. Maybe down the line, once expeditions come out, if those are more difficult missions and things like that, then maybe we'll see a little more use case for the Suppressor's effect. But for now, it's not super useful, but it's at least better than it was. The last shot effect means the last round in your magazine has a 25% chance to deal double damage. Now, I haven't gotten to test this, and I haven't seen what anybody said. I imagine this is kind of a fake double damage, like instigating, where it doubles the weapon's base damage. If that's the case, then that's not a very good roll for your second star. There's a lot more effective than that, but that is a case of Bethesda just being a little stingy on damage, I think, with some of these buffs. But it's new, so that's interesting. And then, of course, we have 25% less VATS AP cost. If you are a VATS shotgun build, then you'll get a lot of mileage out of that. So overall, don't love this one just because I don't really see that any of these effects are particularly useful other than the third star. But time will tell. Maybe things will change. Maybe that last shot effect will prove to be better than I assume it is. But for now, not super excited about this one. And roll number 2 is a Nocturnal Gatling Plasma with VATS hit chance, and it breaks 50% slower. So here again, we've got some changes and some new effects. The Nocturnal effect is going to be interesting going forward. My understanding is that they buffed the damage that it does, which is good, and they removed the debuff during the day. Haven't gotten a chance to play with it, so I'm not sure if it still gets gradually stronger as the night gets later, or if it's just a flat buff for all of your nighttime hours. We'll find that out when we get a better weapon to test with, but definitely an improvement. VATS hit chance is now 50% instead of 33. That's really good on a lot of weapons, but not on a heavy gun where you're not really relying on VATS. And breaking 50% slower, there's going to be a lot of people who say they don't care about that effect at all, but there's going to be a lot of other people who really like it. And I'm one of those people. I don't like fixing my stuff. I don't like grinding. I want to jump in and play. So that's going to be an effect that I definitely like. So do I like this combo on this weapon? And not so much, but some interesting stuff to talk about nonetheless. Let's go ahead and see what's next. And now we've got a Furious Laser Pistol with 25% faster fire rate and 15% faster reload. So this is a pretty solid combination of effects. The Furious effect on a weapon like this that's pretty weak, where you're going to have to put a lot of shots on your target. That's a good thing to have there because you're going to get all the mileage you can out of that Furious effect because you're going to put enough shots on your target to max it out. Faster fire rate is going to increase your DPS. Faster reload is going to also increase your DPS. Unfortunately, it's a laser pistol / laser rifle, depending on what mods you put on it. So it's pretty underpowered with the way energy damage is calculated in Fallout 76. And that's a shame. That needs some attention going forward. Other than that, this is a pretty solid roll. I'd just like to see some improvements made to the energy weapons themselves going forward. What do you have next for us? We've got a Furious Crusader pistol with limb damage and 250 damage resistance while reloading. So Mama Mumbles is liking the Furious effect on pistols for us today. So just like the laser pistol, this is another weapon, not super high damage per shot. So you're going to put some shots on your target, so you'll get a little bit of mileage out of Furious, and that's not a bad thing. I've been running with a Mutant Slayer's Crusader pistol on this character for a while, so this will be an upgrade over that. Limb damage, not amazing, but it doesn't hurt when you do get your tankier enemies if you want to take a couple of shots at the legs and maybe slow them down a little bit. Damage resistance while reloading, again, doesn't hurt to have it, but, you know, at least it doesn't break the weapon like it used to long ago. But with the diminishing effects on these things, I don't think you get a ton out of that. But overall, it's still an upgrade for me over my existing Crusader pistol. And our next roll is, oh, this one's pretty good. We've got an anti-armor 50 cal with 25% damage while aiming and 50 damage resistance while aiming. So the anti-armor effect is great on heavy weapons. They do lower damage per shot, but fire a lot faster than other weapons. So they're all about DPS. Basically, the way the damage resistance model works in Fallout 76, the lower your damage per shot, the harder it is for you to defeat your enemy's armor. So getting anti-armor on a low damage per shot weapon is very useful. Now, the 50 cal isn't the lowest damage per shot of the heavy guns. It's still pretty effective, but because you're not sneaking and you're not doing other things like that, anti-armor is very useful. Now, 25% damage while aiming, this is the Hitman's effect. Prior to this week's update, this was only 10% damage while aiming, so it wasn't very useful, especially with the additive damage model. Buffing that to 25% definitely makes that more desirable. It's still not earth-shattering because it is still additive damage, so you're not going to see a huge difference per shot, but it definitely gives you something, and it pairs well with this type of weapon where you're going to generally be free aiming it and not using it in VATS. So that's very, very useful, and you're not aiming down a sight, so even when you aim it, it's still very comfortable and convenient to be to actually aim the weapon instead of using hip fire. So this is a solid roll. 50 damage resistance while aiming, not super useful with the diminishing returns on damage resistance. I'd still like to see them change all of those damage resistance perks to damage avoidance, but hey, what can you do? Let's look at the next roll here. It's an assassin submachine gun, 50% damage to humans, 25% damage while aiming, and 250 damage resistance while reloading. So let's start at the bottom. Damage resistance while reloading, not a bad thing to have, but not something you're going to get a whole lot out of. You know, if there's a good time to have extra damage resistance, it's while you're defenseless like that. But again, with the diminishing returns you get on damage resistance in Fallout 76, not super useful. 25% damage while aiming, again, we've got that Hitman's effect. So that's good. That's a good little buff. And then now you'll notice that instead of 10% damage to humans, we're 50%. And that's happened with all of the Slayer type effects in Fallout 76. Personally, I think they should have buffed that to 100%. I've said before, I think they're being really stingy with the damage buffs in this update. I appreciate that they're here, and any buff is a good buff, but since One Wasteland with additive damage, nothing does like earth-shattering over-the-top damage except for the explosive energy legacy weapons that they just want to seem to pretend don't exist. So, you know, you could take this to 100% and it would be fine. It would make it a little more fun, a little more useful. But I do like the combo here of a Slayer effect plus the damage while aiming. That gives you a buff all the time if you're not a VATS user. And then you get an extra buff to specific enemies. So that's kind of an interesting combination. I'm not absolutely in love with it on this weapon, but overall that concept is good. That concept of a combination is good. And now we've got an Executioner's crossbow with limb damage and perception. So this one, I'm not a huge fan of the crossbow, but that's mostly because it's slow, so it doesn't have really good DPS for when you take on tankier enemies or bosses. But maybe the Executioner's effect makes that a little more viable. That effect still works well. I believe it is still multiplicative. So, you know, quiet, don't tell Bethesda, you know, don't fix it if it's not broken, because it's really not broken. It actually makes the effect useful. Limb damage, I don't love on this weapon. This is definitely more of a kill things in one shot quickly kind of weapon, but the Executioner's effect helps address its biggest weakness, which is bosses and tanky enemies, where you need to be able to shoot a little faster and put more shots on your target. So maybe that damage buff on the tail end of things could be a big help, or maybe it could just continue to be bad. Either way, could be good, could be bad, not super in love with it. Let's see what's next. And now we've got a Ghoul Slayer's 44, with VATS critical shots doing more damage and 250 damage resistance while reloading. So, for an endgame player, this weapon is instant Scrip. For a mid-level player, or somebody who's grinding up a new character or something like that, this combination could be really useful. So, revolvers are not the best weapons in the game by far, but with this increased buff to Slayer effects, doing 50% more damage to ghouls, VATS critical shot doing more damage, and damage resistance while reloading, that's an interesting combo. Imagine that you are, say, a level 40 player, and you get a weapon like this, and you really want to grind yourself up to level 50. What are you going to do? You're going to hit the White Spring. You're going to go kill a ton of ghouls. So you get some use out of a weapon like this. It's going to do pretty good damage and be pretty efficient on your ammo. And because you reload it a lot, you get more damage resistance while you're reloading. Those mid-level, low-level characters aren't going to have all that much damage resistance. So that's a useful thing. So this is one of those weapons that for, you know, level 30, maybe to 60 or so players could get some use out of it. Nobody else really will. And now we've got a weapon with one of the brand new primary legendary effects. We've got the Juggernaut's effect, plus VATS critical shots doing more damage and faster reload. So let's talk about our second and third stars first. VATS critical shots doing more damage is great. If you are a VATS build, you're going to get a lot of VATS critical shots, so that's a pretty solid damage buff. 15% faster reload is definitely helpful on a revolver. It's not a super slow reload on this weapon, you just have to do it a lot. So if you can reduce that reload time, that's good. Now let's talk about the Juggernaut's effect. Damage increases as health increases. So it's kind of a counter to the Bloodied effect. Here's the problem. It maxes out at a 25% damage buff when you are at 95% health. So it's not much of a buff. When you compare that to something like Bloodied, where you technically you get up to 80% if you're at 0 health, but yeah, realistically, you're going to be, most players are rolling about an 80% damage buff because they're right under 20% health. So that's significantly higher. Of course, there's more risk with Bloodied, but then on top of that, you get to pair that with different synergies. You have the Adrenal Reaction effect or mutation rather, for yet more damage at low health. You have Nerd Rage for yet more damage at low health. And then Nerd Rage also gives you more damage resistance and better AP regeneration. And then on top of that, you're going to wear your Unyielding Armor to boost up your specials. So you're going to be sneakier. You're going to have more AP. You're going to have better VATS accuracy. Where with this, there isn't really anything else that synergizes with it. I think there's a new armor effect or you can use Vanguard's armor for a little more damage resistance, but you just don't really have all those synergies. So for being full health, you can get a 25% additive damage buff. It's not nothing, but it's not much more than nothing. So, you know, and I get it. Bloodied should be better. It is riskier. It is a little harder, but at the same time, full health, staying 95% health isn't exactly easy either. Everything gives you rads throughout the wasteland. So you're going to constantly use Radaway. You're going to constantly use stim packs. You're going to use different aid items to keep that health high. And, you know, that's something that should be taken into consideration, is that you're going to have to kind of constantly maintain that health, where for a low health player, all we got to do is sit next to a radiation barrel for a little while and we're good to go. So some more stuff that would synergize with that would be good. I'd like to see that. I think that would be a really interesting thing to see, a true counter to the bloodied build, a full health build that really pays you for maintaining that perfect health all the time. It's much easier. It's going to be much easier to get knocked off that perfect health ledge than it is to get knocked up into better health for a bloodied build. So I think they could do a little more there. 25% damage is really low. Without some things to synergize with, that could use a real buff, and maybe a full health unyielding type effect for armor could be good too. But hey, it is what it is. We got what we got. At least it's something new and interesting to talk about. And now for our last roll of the day, a suppressor's handmade with VATS critical shots doing more damage and less VATS AP cost. So is this a weapon that anybody's going to jump up and down for? No. But it's an interesting one. And it's interesting because the handmade is such a good weapon to begin with. If you are a stealth commando build and you've got that build even reasonably close to good, you're going to do great with even a non-legendary handmade. So one that suppresses target damage output could be interesting, especially if we get some more challenging things in the future. VATS critical shots doing more damage. If you are a VATS critical build, chances are you're getting a critical every second or third shot, probably every third shot for most people. Maybe fourth if you're not really invested in it, but you get a lot of VATS criticals, so that's a damage buff. 25% less VATS AP cost means you're really never even going to think about running out of action points to use VATS for this thing, so that's a great combination there. You know, if you want a weapon that you can just kind of run around with, suppress your enemies with, and maybe be a little sloppier. You know, you just want a casual farming session and you don't want to worry about dying. This could be an interesting one to do that with. So is it amazing? No. Am I doing backflips over it? No. But the second and third stars are a solid combination on their own. The suppressor's effect, while not super useful, maybe it could be at some point in the future. And because it's a handmade, it already does great damage. So that's it for our trip to Mama Mumbles, but we've got more today. We're going to head back over to camp and we're going to craft a few legendary items and talk about how that system works. So I've got enough legendary crafting materials for 5 3-star weapons. I want to craft some fixers and I want to craft a couple of power fists to see what we can get there. Fixers, I've got a lot of good fixers. I think you just can't really have enough of them. So we're going to craft one here. We're going to start with one and just craft it up. And then we're going to go ahead and also craft a power fist. Let's just get that cooked up here and we'll just do one at level 50. So same thing here. We'll just do one of each to start. And then we'll go in and we'll put on some legendary mods. So all we have to do now is just switch to modifications. But before I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and stick the existing legendary weapons I have in my stash, because I'm not exactly sure how these are going to show up and I want to make sure it's nice and simple to view. So let's go ahead in here and we'll go into modify and repair. We'll start with the power fist. We have no legendary mods on it now. And you can see here, we'll go with a 3-star mod and see what we get. So here we go, 5 cores, 4 modules. Let's craft it up and see what we get. Oh, we got some hot trash. Okay, an exterminator's power fist with 40% more power attack damage, and it breaks 50% slower. So yeah, this one's garbage. The exterminator's effect, 50% damage instead of 30 is great, but it's still useless. There just is no scenario where you're going to use that on any regular basis, so definitely not going to roll with that one. 40% more power attack damage isn't a bad thing, but what I really want is swing speed, so that doesn't make it worth keeping. Breaking 50% slower is nice, but it's not that vital. So this one, instead of keeping it and crafting a new one, we're just going to re-roll the effects here. We're going to do a second shot here to see what we get. 3 stars again. It's going to be the same thing when we get in here. 5 cores, 4 modules, and it's going to erase all 3 of these effects, or at least it could erase all 3 of these effects. It's going to re-roll 3 totally brand new ones, and now we've got anti-armor, power attack damage, and less damage while blocking. So anti-armor is definitely a better effect than exterminators, no question about that. but melee weapons do a lot of damage per hit, so you're not getting a ton of mileage out of that, but I'll take what we can get. 40% more power attack damage, again, isn't bad. I'd prefer swing speed. Less damage while blocking is fairly useless, but that's okay. It's better than the first one, so now we've got our fixer. Let's do the same thing here. 3-star mod, so 5 cores, 4 modules, and let's see what we get on our first fixer. We're going to roll 3 of these. So this one, we've got Executioners, 50% more damage when target is below 40% health. Bashing damage increased to 50%. It was only 40% before, and when it was 40%, it was completely useless. So this is a 20% increase. So now it's 20% less useless, but it's still completely and utterly useless. So that's total trash. Hits have a chance to generate a stealth field. I know there's a name for that effect, and I just don't remember what it is. Maybe it's still cloaking. I'm not sure. It's kind of interesting on a stealthy weapon like a fixer to get an effect like that. So I think for this one, while I have other Executioner's fixers, I think for this one, rather than re-roll it, I'm just going to make a new one. I'm going to hold on to that one. I'm going to make a new one, and we're going to roll our effects on that. So one of the big criticisms of the new system is that if you have a weapon that's close to perfect, you can't just re-roll your 1-star. You have to risk losing everything. That's really not true. You don't have to risk losing everything. You can just make a blank one and roll effects on that. You do not have to give up the effects on your old weapon. You just have to roll a new one. You have to craft or acquire a new one first. If you re-roll on your weapon, then yes, you will lose your effects. But if you get a new one, you won't. That's the whole point. It's a legendary crafting system. Yes, you can upgrade and I guess downgrade things, but this is the big thing. So let's see what else we've got here. We're going to do 2 more of these, and I'm moving a little slower than usual on them just because it's new. So now we've got, oh, wow. Okay, this one's pretty good. This is a pretty sexy little fixer here. So we've got quad ammo capacity, 50% VATS hit chance, and VATS critical meter filling 15% faster. Now, I was a big fan of VATS hit chance when it was 33%. I'm a bigger fan of it at 50%. It does the same thing. You can target limbs, target those weak points for more damage, and essentially you can hit them from further away. It makes it a lot easier to put some work in with these weapons. So definitely a good, very solid effect, especially for me. VATS critical meter filling 15% faster. That's just simply going to get me more VATS criticals, so that's a great thing. And the quad effect, of course, is awesome for DPS. Very, very popular effect since One Wasteland, and this is a great combination. You know, something like better VATS criticals and 25% less VATS AP cost might be a little more desirable, but for me, this is a really, really solid roll. And so what we're going to do here, because that one was good, we're going to go ahead and craft another one so that we don't lose those effects. And now we'll go ahead and just switch to modify again. And here's our, we have the other 2. You can see we have the other 2 right here. Easy enough. We didn't lose anything. And we've got a new blank one, and that's the one we're going to mod now. So once again, 4 mods, 5 cores. And this one is, this one's another interesting one. So, of course, the fixers no longer say the legendary effect on them, which is kind of annoying, but this one's Berserkers. Lower damage resistance, increases damage dealt. Replenish action points with each kill, which is a new effect, and 25% less VATS AP cost. So this is an interesting combo, and it's one that I definitely want to test out. The Berserkers effect has been improved kind of the way Nocturnal has been improved, in that the debuff that you used to get for being over a certain amount of damage resistance is now gone. So now you just get a buff if your damage resistance is low enough. No more debuff. My understanding is, though, that they actually nerfed that buff a little bit, so I don't know how effective it is, but we'll play with it at some point. I don't know if I'll do a spotlight on it. I think I probably will, but we'll test it out at some point. But what I like here is that we replenish AP with each kill. Now, I don't know if that is a full restock of action points or if it's just a little bit, kind of like vampires. but that's pretty cool. And then the fact that it uses less VATS AP is also great. One of the downsides to running a Berserker's build is you don't have unyielding armor to buff up your AP. So that's kind of an interesting one to get, because that combo there is going to help you do that. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting one to roll. So we can see here 3 fixers, 3 interesting ones. The first one, not amazing, but you know, I do think people are underestimating just how effective this is going to be. I know that people wanted to see the ability to re-roll individual effects on weapons, but I just don't think that was ever in the cards. But I do think that people were kind of underestimating just how much RNG they were cutting out by being able to craft the specific item they want. That in and of itself is going to be a huge improvement for everybody. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to bring us to the end of this one. As I said, I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do these in the future, if we're going to do maybe a trip to the Purveyor every week and legendary crafting the next week, or keep mixing them up. We'll see, and you can see my little camp build in progress here. But yeah, so we'll see how it goes ultimately. But I think with that said, we're done for today. I think we've done a lot. And if you enjoyed this and you want to see more, do go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment. Until next time, I'm Fisty McRib.